Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Futurum Tech Webcast interview series. I'm your host, Shelly Kramer, and today we are going to have a conversation about focusing on the candidate experience in today's job market, which is actually no small challenge. And I'm joined by some very brilliant folks that I'm looking forward to introducing you to. One of which is Dr. Benoit Hardy-Vallee. He is with Phenom, and his colleague, AJ Patel, who is with Straumann Group. Our conversation today is going to be about, as I said, the importance of focusing on the candidate experience and really talking a little bit in depth about the challenges that organizations have when it comes to talent recruitment, talent management, all of the things that are involved in that, and some of the ways that technology solutions can help bridge those challenges. So, without further ado, let me introduce you to my guests, and I'm going to have you start, Benoit, by just telling us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So pleasure meeting you all. I like to say that I started my career actually working in a restaurant. To me, it has been the best training in terms of multitasking, having the kitchen behind you, the customer in front of you, managing both colleagues. It was like a laboratory for the modern workplace. So I
Right.
did that many years throughout my college, high school, and all that. And then I decided I wanted to do something very complicated, got a PhD in philosophy. It was great to have deep thoughts about unemployment, which at some point led me to actually consider, well, what should I do with my life? And then ended up in consulting in various roles around consulting and always around HR because I've always been fascinated by the psychology, technology, and the interplay of these different fields together. So that led me now to work with Phenom, with client, where I help design the strategy and see how we can use AI and technology to improve engagement, attraction, and different HR objectives.
That's so interesting. I have spent 30 years as a brand strategist. And so I wear multiple hats. I'm a brand strategist, I'm a tech analyst, but I'm fascinated by human behavior and I always have been. And so, a lot of what you were saying really resonated with me because, nerdy people like us who sit around and think about human behavior, human experiences, what they are today, how to make them better, I think those things are really fascinating.
Yeah, and there's so much research in the last 20, 30 years. You look at behavioral economics,
Yeah.
cognitive science, AI. So it's a very interdisciplinary field that now is
Yeah.
starting to have an impact on management and human resource. So it's a great
Yeah.
time to be in this business, really.
Absolutely. And an important part, as we'll get into further in our conversation, we've seen some sort of transition in the workplace over the course of the last couple of years. And I think employers need to shift their thinking considerably. So, with that, I'm going to toss it to you, AJ. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Thanks for the introduction. My name is AJ Patel. I am currently the VP Head of Talent Acquisition. We call it Join, the head of Join in our organization. So in my current role, I'm responsible for everything related to recruiting, onboarding, workforce planning, and employer brand. And we'll come back to that, I'm sure, through the course of this conversation. But I actually started my career in a completely different field, like many candidates. And in the modern world we're in, I think people choose a degree, an educational path, but actually may choose something very different as they kind of venture into the real
Right.
world. I actually started life as an astrophysicist, and I didn't make it into NASA, so I looked for another path. I wandered into recruiting, um, helping candidates from an agency's perspective find their first jobs, primarily in the pharmaceutical and medical device sector. I had the opportunity to move in-house, do consulting work, and after many, many years of recruiting, I now find myself in a HR leadership role working for Straumann Group. I think what's consistent in candidate experiences is that, or in the modern science of what candidates we believe they want, is they really want to make an impact. They want to
Right.
find information quickly. They want a digital experience, that a consumer grade experience that really delights them, but also gives them a feeling of the culture or the organization they're going to be entering into. So in my current work, I'm trying to engineer that with tech, with brand, with all the things I described before. So yeah, happy to be part of this call and share
There,
some of my knowledge.
Very fascinating. And I think that one of the things to me that's fascinating, I have 4 daughters. I have 2 who are grown and gone, and then I have 15-year-old twins who are sophomores in high school. And one of the things that I'm trying to make sure they understand is that what you think you want to do and spend your life doing when you're, in those later years of high school, and then when you go to university, sometimes those things change dramatically. I thought I wanted to be a trial attorney, and I ended up going into advertising, and because a recruiter um, found what she thought would be a perfect job for me, and then here I am all these years later, using my communication skills in a different way than I ever intended. So I think that life journey, and the fact that all of us have had very different life journeys, is pretty fascinating. So we are going to talk a little bit, the last 2 years, we've been navigating a global pandemic. It has certainly not been easy. We've seen people leave jobs in droves. Some, in some instances, those were layoffs. In some instances, those were, people realized when a pandemic hit, and some of the work shifted to working from home. Sometimes people couldn't do that. Sometimes people realized they hated their jobs and wanted to find another opportunity. And there's so many reasons. But so we're dealing with, a shift in the workplace brought on by a pandemic. We have a shift in how people work and where people work. And this is really kind of like a job market like we've never seen before, And so I know that one of the challenges for employers is really trying to figure out, where do we go from here? How do we manage this? Is there a secret recipe that we need to follow to find and recruit talent? And that's one of the things that we're going to be talking about in this conversation, really how businesses can, make sure candidates find the right jobs and make sure that employees are able to grow in their current positions. And I think that that's actually another challenge that we see that's been sort of amplified by the pandemic. I think people have realized that one of you said this, I think maybe it was you, Benoit, but people want work to be meaningful. They want to grow. Um, and so I think as employers, finding those opportunities for them in career development is really important. So let's talk about a little bit about what you're seeing with regard to these dramatic shifts in the job market. Benoit, what are you seeing?
I would say that across industries, there seem to be a common pattern now that people are looking to hire, that they don't necessarily find the talent that they want. As you said, it's a completely different market. It's
Right.
a candidate market like I think none of us have ever seen before.
Right.
And employees have different expectations. They are getting really impatient. You need to hire fast. You need to provide them something meaningful, values, a path for their future. And if you can't make your value visible upfront quickly, they move to the next one. Gone are the days where you could use the what I call the martial art paradigm. In all of these old martial art movies, if you really want to go into that dojo and get trained by this specialist, you have to earn it. You have to wait 24 hours
Yeah.
in the rain outside. And if you're lucky, maybe they will take you. Well, nowadays they're just going to move to the next
Yeah.
dojo. So we turn the table, and now everybody's figuring out how can I be faster? How can I be more visible? Even just on search engine, if you're not visible, if you're
Right.
not easy to find, that's it, you're gone. So that's creating a lot of distress, and organizations are using every tools that they can find, from the branding to AI to sourcing, sometimes using recruiters, RPOs, to try to shortcut that, because for some organization it's their lifeblood. If you don't have enough people, you can design product, you can sell them, you can service
Right.
customer. So some people are getting really stressed.
It is a very stressful time, and I think that, part of what we're seeing, I think about my own personal experiences. I think about I'm married to a guy who is, generally speaking, used to being on the he's in sales, used to being on the road 80% of the time. And after being home and working from home and doing a lot of those things virtually over the course of the last couple of years, I've seen sort of a reset of in his mind of his norm, you know, and he likes being home and around the kids and able to take them to sporting events or people, I'm hearing, I have a friend who is a CMO at a global ad agency. And, one of the things that they talked about as their senior executives were reevaluating, our shift to hybrid and do we, how we come back to the office, if we come back to the office. And one of the things that they learned from their employees, during the pandemic is that this group of young parents, for the first time in their lives, in their work lives, got the opportunity to take their children to school and drop them off and then pick them up after school, which seems like a small thing. But as a woman who's in charge of handling those things, that's a few minutes every day, but it's much different to be able to do that with your kids than it is to drop your kids at, before school care at 7:30 so that you can hurry up and get to your 8 o'clock meeting and then not being able to pick them up until after school care. But my point in bringing that up is that I think what we've seen is a reset in expectations from employees.
Mhm.
And to your point, people are very quick to move on if, the opportunity that you're serving up for them doesn't meet what it is that, fulfills them, and allows them the flexibility to do what it is they think is important. What about you, AJ? What have you seen in the market over the course of the last couple of years and the last couple of months? What kind of changes have you seen?
I mean, definitely the last year has been an unusual year, but a kind of an accelerator year for some of the general principles that we all kind of assume are the right things to do in HR practices. And then we got forced into some of these things by having to have employees work remotely or consider a talent that might need to move country or different locations,
Right.
but leave them physically where they are, but have them doing a new type of job in a new environment. So I think we've had to move faster. I think the way that I perceive this is that we're in a very rapidly changing world. Anyway, there's, every company will talk about digitalization or
Right.
moving to having more of a customer-centric mindset. These are kind of buzzwords or catchphrases that every company talks about. But what we found is in this new kind of digital online world where we were forced very quickly in the last couple of years, companies have had to catch up, and employee expectations and candidate expectations have also kind of changed very dramatically in the last 12 months. We see people leaving companies at a larger scale in some markets, particularly the US and UK and some other markets as well. But the expectations, even we hear rhetoric about, one of the first questions that candidates are asking us is, do you allow us to work remotely? How many days a week do I need to be in the
Right.
office?
Right.
And for some trades and internal functions where, you kind of need to be in the office to do manufacturing work because we have a site where that work needs to be done. But the same questions are coming up from very different populations that you wouldn't necessarily expect more flexibility than we might have expected before. So we need to rethink how work can be done in this new kind of future of work that is very much a reality, much faster than we expected. So yeah, it's a nice new challenge for HR to tackle.
It's a challenge for HR, and it's really a challenge for business leaders as well. I think that we've all probably seen over the course of the last 18 months or so headlines about, senior executives insisting that, a return to the office as soon as possible is critically important because our work can't be done outside the office. There are executives with that mindset, and there are executives with the, we are shifting to fully remote and trust our employees, and, we know that productivity isn't a problem. So it's really an interesting. So it's not just HR leaders. I think it's leadership at all levels. And we really are sort of in the midst of the great relearning about what the future of work is, and also thinking about what it will be too,
I can
And
agree
I
more.
think that will highlight the importance of trust. I think for many years the technology was there. It was possible to do that. We just didn't allow that. Leaders weren't comfortable. Managers would
Right.
rather have their employees close by. So and now that we realize, it's doable even in complicated situations. So now it's proving the point. But employees will also have to be earning that trust. So I guess it's going to be a new economy of trust. Learning how to manage remotely,
Yeah.
maybe less focus about presenteeism, people having to be at a certain time in the office, And maybe the next step will be also starting to think about asynchronous work, because if we all work from home, but we have to be in the same time zone from 9 to 5, we're still repeating the
We
same
are.
logic, which in some business could make sense, right? Don't get me wrong. But there's some businesses, if you think about software development, where there's a lot of deep work that is involved. And for that deep work, you would rather work at different time. And then again, as a father of two, not four, but two, so I can still understand the logic. Yeah. I do enjoy sometimes working late at night or really early in the morning to do my deep work before taking care of the kids. And
Yeah.
building this flexibility in my life makes it very engaging, because it's not just my job in my life, it's my life as a whole, and work is a part of it, and my children understand that. So it's rebuilding this new work, but we need to have trust from both ends.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I walked away from my computer at 10 o'clock last night. So, and but a lot of it is, it's a balancing. It is, I leave at 3 in the afternoon to go pick up my kids from school, and then I run them to sports practice at 5 o'clock, and then I pick them up at 7. And so, the work gets done. It just doesn't always get done in that one block of time that we're used to. Although I will say that my team and I have an advantage because we have been virtual here at Futurum for probably all of us have been virtual for about 20 years. So we're kind of experts at sort of managing that. Um, I want to talk a little bit about something that we see in the headlines a lot, and it's called the Great Resignation. And a lot of different things I think are driving that, whether, things we've touched on in this conversation in terms of, people are looking for, more opportunities, more money, greater flexibility, jobs they actually love. And sometimes people weren't engaged in those kind of jobs. So all of these things are contributing to a massive loss of talent in the job market. So, AJ, how are companies responding with talent retention initiatives?
I think talent retention and the great skills gap play a big part in a lot of what could be an answer. I think it is going to be very unique for every company as well.
Right.
I can talk maybe for Straumann Group. So we currently are going through a stage of expansion. So we just need more people, but also a very different type of skill set that we require as an organization. And we're digitalizing everything.
Right.
We're focusing much more on consumer experiences. For me in HR, the consumer is an employee or a candidate. But these are skills that we don't have at scale today. And I think most companies are going after this digitalization experience. So there is a significant shortage of digital talent in every aspect of HR,
Right.
procurement, marketing, sales.
Every
I think
everywhere.
that's causing a big, shortage of those skills, and we can't make people overnight. Those people might want, we can train people and develop people. So I think some of the work we're doing is trying to re-educate our organization about what's in their control in terms of what career path they can move forward to. I think what we're also hearing from candidates as to why they choose to leave or why they choose to come is maybe current employers are not giving them opportunities for internal development and growth, or what was written on the tin of the employer brand wasn't as authentic when they actually landed in the company. And those growth and development opportunities, the impact of the work that people are doing, the experience that they feel that they want to have isn't necessarily offered. And there is that common phrase that people don't leave companies, people leave managers. But it's really the experience that somebody has when they're interacting with a manager as a leader, or an organization that people fall out of love with and maybe look for other opportunities. I think this is a wake-up call for a lot of companies, that the index of what's important for people to make decisions as to whether to stay or go is now veering more towards soft factors in many kind of functions, not necessarily across the board, but certainly in some critical functions. I think there's a different proposition. And I also think that people are also looking for, there's a lot of rhetoric in society about people having to reskill rapidly just to stay relevant, even in their own function, but
Right.
also learn across functions as well to stay relevant and move up the organization. There was a time in our organization where a sales rep became a sales manager, became a territory manager, became a regional manager, and maybe one day became a CEO of a region or a country.
Right.
That's not the path that we encourage anymore. So people are looking for those more diverse growth opportunities. And unless organizations really change, moving up the vertical and give opportunities to learn across horizontally, we're going to lose people. And just because they can get those opportunities elsewhere.
Yeah, I think that "what have you done for me lately" mindset is something that employers really need to understand. The employees today hold I feel like employees today pretty much hold all the cards. So, transforming our workplace culture, transforming, building a place where people actually, I know this sounds kind of goofy, but I get up every single day excited about what it is I do and who it is I get to do it with. And of course, there are tasks along the way that are onerous and, another meeting or whatever. But I truly do feel grateful that I love what I do, and hopefully you 2 do as well. But I think that is something really important to realize is that, it's not just the 3 of us who are looking for that. Everybody's looking for that. And as employers and out as HR pros and as learning management teams and that sort of thing, I think understanding the importance of, um, building a culture of continuous learning and embracing change and innovation and building a culture of trust. I think all of those things are part of the foundation of successful organizations today.
And people had a full year of reflection, sometimes forced because you don't travel, you don't commute. So you start to look in the abyss and think about what I want to do with my life. So I
Right.
think it triggers a lot of reflection. At the same time, it's also a year and a half where many people were stuck in their career because you don't know how it will evolve. So you don't start looking around. So when you start getting out of that, it's like confinement. After that, you need to go outside, get some fresh air, see what else you can do. So now people are starting to shop, and then you realize that there's an advantage as a candidate. So you can start shopping around. So
Right.
I think not that it was predictable, but I will say that I run hundreds and hundreds of employee engagement surveys and programs. And every time growth, development, career pathing, or career
Yeah.
development in general, it's always one of the top or one of the top 2 drivers of engagement. If
Right.
you feel like you can progress one day, one way, it drives you into working. But if you lose that faith, you start checking out and working somewhere else.
I think some of this is a little bit generational, and I hate to generalize on any topic, and I hate to only I hate to stereotype generations, but I do think that the oldest millennials are turning 40. And we've got Gen Z coming up. These are groups of digital natives, and they're used to multitasking. They're used to rapidly learning new things. They're used to being immersed in technology and digital experiences and those kinds of things. And I think part of they're also used to something that I think is important as part of this equation is hyper personalized experiences. And I know that that's part of our conversation today is that you know, HR technology solutions can help serve up those hyper personalized experiences, and they matter a lot. So talk with us a little bit about that if you would. Either one of you.
Yeah, sure. Let me kick off, and Benoit's more the expert, I would say. But certainly from a in a Straumann Group perspective, we're kind of a traditional organization, and we're growing very rapidly. So in our circumstance, we're an organization that is tipping over just into becoming a mid-size organization, a medical device organization that's growing quite rapidly, and we're very successful so far. But the expectations of HR have typically been as long as kind of people get paid and they're happy and we're not getting sued and we're treating people generally quite well, that's HR.
Right.
And we're rapidly changing this.
Right.
We've hired different HR leaders. We're recoaching managers and leaders to take more accountability for how their teams are performing. We have high performing team sessions. So the mindset of how our organization culturally is progressing is very different to what it was a few years ago. The mindset of our leadership in terms of what their accountabilities are in terms of developing people, how people should be recognized, how they're rewarded. That is all changing, aligned to this more millennial kind of generation that you described in this generational shift as well. And that's not to say that older folks are excluded. I think
Right.
everybody, I'm older, I would
I'm
say,
older. I want those
but I
things.
also I want exactly those things. I want to make an impact, and how that is positioned, how is it encouraged, is super important to individuals.
Yeah.
And when we start thinking about this personalization layer, there's a lot of investment that we're making into a seamless employee experience. So what you look at as a candidate experience when you see an employer brand in a website or on a careers website, what is spoken about in the keywords and the imagery should be called authentic, and the same as the experience when you land as an employee. There
Right.
shouldn't be a jarring difference. The survey that you fill in for engagement survey should reflect kind of where we're kind of positioning ourselves and the values and the morals of the company. And in that personalization layer, if we can bring, using technology, kind of, everybody has their own dream, everybody has their own purpose. Where it connects with our company purpose, that's when magic happens.
Right.
But really, it's about helping people understand what they want to do, what their ambitions are, and how there's a joint kind of benefit for a period of time. Maybe we only have a relationship as an employee for 3 years, maybe 5, maybe 10, but where there's shared gain, we have a relationship. When it doesn't work so much anymore, it's okay. Go off, discover new things, learn something, but maybe even come back as an
Right.
alumni and then rekindle that relationship and continue that growth journey. That's, I think, what we're trying to kind of create as in organizations now, which is quite different from the traditional HR systems that we kind of set up before, which was much more operational. People should
Right.
get paid. We shouldn't get sued and we're fine. Now it's about employee experience, candidate experience, and living a
Yeah.
relationship together that's beneficial for everybody.
And
Yeah, Benoit.
Yeah.
that trust is such a big part of the equation. An analogy that popped into my head when you were talking about that was, have you ever encountered someone by way of social media channels? Maybe you connect with them on LinkedIn or you connect with them on Twitter, and you expect them to look a certain way, and then you actually meet them in person and you realize that the profile picture they're using is 10 years old and they look like, and you feel tricked, right? You feel like,
Hmm.
and it's not a good foot forward. And so I think that what you're saying is what you say, this environment that we're hoping that you'll accept a position and join our organization, and what it actually is when it shows up, they need to be they need to be the same.
Yeah,
Benoit.
you need to deliver on that
Yeah.
experience, but it also applies for us when we think about it. It's the whole ecosystem. Whether you are a recruiter, a manager, an employee, or a candidate, or even an alumni or silver medalist, right? The people who didn't get hired but you stay in contact with. Everybody use technologies that has built-in hyper personalization. We don't even call it personalization because we take it for granted. Of
Yeah.
course, Netflix will recommend movies I like and Spotify will recommend music I like. It's not perfect. It's not 100%,
Right.
but more or less it helps me find content that I find interesting.
Yeah.
Well, now we expect the same things for a lot of HR system. As a candidate,
do.
what kind of job am I a fit for? As an employee, where can I take my career? As a recruiter, what kind of candidate would be a good fit for the job I'm recruiting? And then if I'm a hiring manager, in all that talent pool that I'm looking at, who would be a good fit? Again, it's bringing the what used to be only made through human ways, right? The personalization used to be that experience when you go to a restaurant, the waitress know you. Hey, how are you? AJ, glad to see you. Here's your favorite coffee or tea, right? So it was a customer experience, but now we generalize that across every experience. And you look at every HR function, and now everybody's mapping the talent life cycle from being attracted to converted to progressing to even leaving the organization. How can you make it about the individual? And the KPIs reflect that. A lot of people are incented on NPS score, on retention, not just on typical productivity metrics.
All very salient points. I'm thinking now about roadblocks along the way. And what kind of roadblocks, Benoit, are your customers seeing as they, work to improve the candidate experience and fill open roles in their organizations? What are the hurdles they have to jump over?
Yeah, I would say a common one is that we have a big system to manage all of our HR experience, but then we have another one, another one, another one. And then as a candidate, you're bounced between different systems. And also, let's face it, there's a lot of career side that seem to be neglected from a branding or marketing perspective, or at least they look good, but then the experience of applying feels a bit convoluted. Again, I'm buying, and according to my wife, way too many things on Amazon with one click buy. It's easy, it's simple, it gets
Right.
delivered to my, it's fantastic, costly, but fantastic. But then you have to go on a career site and upload your resume and then fill everything. People just turn off and say, no, no, thank you.
And the whole way along the way, you're just thinking, I'm so irritated. There has to be
Yeah,
a better way.
there
I'm
has
so
to be a better
irritated.
way.
Is this what it's going to be like working for this organization? Because I'm out.
Exactly. It's the first time you're creating an impression in their mind. So that's a big roadblock. I mean, technology can fix that. It's not the only thing, right?
Yeah.
Technology is not the miracle. You also want to have an attractive proposition. Some organization may have neglected that for many years. And then even if you have a good process, if you're left in some kind of dark hole, you don't hear from recruiters, it's another challenge for customer experience.
Right.
And then, and there was a lot of talks in the press in the last few weeks. You have also systems that discount candidate based on very simple rules. If you have a 6-month gap in your resume, you're taken out of the process, which is so unfair for so many reasons. But you think, right? So there's a matching problem sometimes, but also an access problem.
Yeah, absolutely. What are your thoughts on that topic, AJ?
Sure. So in terms of roadblocks to getting to this beautiful future, I guess, I think we're coming from a world where a lot of HR or employee or candidate experiences were very analog and very traditional in mindset. You know, the process was designed to manage the process and get people through and look at the CVs or resumes and process people. That was what the system was designed for.
Right.
Um, and now we're moving into a new generation where we do value experience a lot more. In some cases, the folks who are in that system haven't yet changed their mindset. So I think there's people. I think there's processes that sometimes get in the way, and then there's the eternal balance between globalization and localization. And there's often the right answer in the middle. But finding that balance is often quite tricky for larger organizations that are trying to battle with, it wouldn't be great if everybody had the same experience. This is it, and this is it. We're done. One brand, one set of keywords, one experience. We're done. But of course, there's a local situation in this market, and maybe this doesn't work for that function. And finding the tolerance between the right globalization strategy, the right localization, maybe the old phrase of globalization needs to come into play. What's that right balance in between to get people engaged and conceptually thinking about the people in the process, whether they're candidates or employees, the personas of the 80%, because it is pretty hard to serve everybody, but how can we really think of the 80% of people that are using this most, and how can we serve their needs to make the most impact for the things that matter most to us? I think that often is a huge roadblock because there's so many people with so many different priorities aligning around one vision. That can be quite difficult for bigger organizations, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. I often think too that when I encounter situations, I find myself saying, whoever it was that designed this journey that I'm on has never actually walked this path as a customer. When you're filling out forms or when you're doing something and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is crazy, the processes that I have to go through. And it's such a simple thing. For people who are charged with developing those systems and those processes and those forms and everything else to actually take them, go through that process themselves. But I think sometimes in many instances people forget about that, and I think that's an important part of the solution.
Maybe I could add to this topic that I think companies are catching on at the same time. And you see a lot of trendy new job titles, employee experience managers
Yeah,
and employer brand leads and um, transformation leads that are leading us in a new kind of employee experience altogether.
yeah,
I think companies are catching on and starting to value these things a lot more.
yeah,
They don't sometimes know how to do everything in one go. And I think we're in a few transformation years where the tech is evolving and emerging. Some is good, some is not as connected as we would hope to other pieces of tech that make a seamless experience across multiple platforms.
right.
But give it a few more years, I really feel that this is really going places.
Yeah,
We're in the seed stage, I would say, at the moment, where it's starting to develop and something solid is starting to form. But it'll be really interesting to see what materializes in the next few years. But
Yeah, I
yeah, I think
agree.
we're still in the early stages. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very exciting. And one thing that we've talked about, we haven't specifically identified as part of the biggest challenge here is just silos throughout the organization, and breaking down those silos and having it be an interconnected experience. I think is one of the big keys here. So, talking about technology solution, Benoit, I'd love to hear a little bit from you about Phenom's talent experience management TMX solution, and why a technology, an HR tech solution like this is so valuable for companies today.
Yeah, I mean, for many years, technology, I think, did a great job at managing the process, and maybe consciously or not, was drawing analogies from supply chain management. You take thing from one place, you move that to another place. Well, people are not widget or things or objects, so they have an experience and feeling and all that. So now technology has been evolving. As I mentioned, consumer day-to-day technology get to a stage where it's almost intuitive and transparent. So Phenom applied the same logic to what we call now talent experience management, and it's looking at all of those interconnected experience. The hiring manager and the recruiter on the demand side or the back end, if you will, because they will be needing talent. They will be funneling, filtering, selecting who will work on the organization. So they need speed, they need automation, they need scale. On the supply side or the front end, then you have those candidates, whether they are internal, external, potential candidate, past candidates, alumni, and so on. They are looking for the right job within their own organization, within another organization. And for us, it's four sides of the same coin, if you want. So we build a technology with the recognition that all of these different roles are after the same thing, getting people into the right role, which is, again, an access issues, a matching issue, and an experience issue. So we build a platform that sit on top of the rest of the technology stack to really manage the experience, because process wise, I think we're covered. We have way more process than we need, but what about the experience? And it's important nowadays because, as we mentioned, people shop for good experience. People are difficult, and a good experience, it's personalized, it's intuitive, it's fast, it's convenient, and it's authentic. And if you can create all that with technology, but also with your own soul, right, with your brand as a company, then you can really create interesting experience for everyone. So that's what we're about.
I think that it sounds pretty awesome. AJ, do you have anything to add there in terms of your experience using talent management, using Phenom People's TMX solution?
I do, yeah, sure. I think we it's actually not my first time buying the Phenom platform, so
Right.
I've done this in other organizations as well. But now we're bringing this to Straumann Group as we speak. So we went live very recently. But I think in the decision process for this kind of technology, whether it's Phenom or another platform, I think it starts with a business need. And the business need that we had was really we are not moving enough of our internal talents around our organization fast enough. We're not developing the skills that we require for the future to stay relevant as an organization. And people are telling us that they also want to develop more, to have more career opportunities to relearn and grow in different directions. And of course, around all of this, if we can automate more and give people those hyper personalized experiences, then we're on a winner as well. So the platform selection was kind of secondary. It was more about what is the outcomes we want for a business, and what do we want to give to our employees to retain them and make them feel valued and allow them to grow. So when we put that all together into the big kind of stirring pot, I guess, we then started to look for the tech solutions that could enable these and provide that personalization. That's where
Right.
Phenom in this instance was a good choice for us at our stage of growth. We need to understand our current skills portfolio in our organization, and also understand how do we spot where we have gaps and where do we have to rely probably on developing people at scale by providing learning experiences to bridge gaps and bridge skills gaps, but also maybe where we have to look externally for additional talent as well. And
Fantastic.
that's where the tech is really enabling us do this at scale, which manually would be next to impossible to do
Right.
across all the functions and countries and languages. The tech is really enabling processes, but also self-service from the employee base as well. So that's what's really been the winner for us.
How many employees do you have at Straumann Group?
So we're probably about 8,000 at the moment, but we hope that we might be about 15,000 by 2025. So
That's
for us, this is very rapid growth.
right.
Um,
And so
and
would
so
you say that a solution like the Phenom's TMX solution is foundational in letting you, that's a lot of growth. That's almost doubling your company size. So
it could
is it
be.
having a solution of this nature in place that you feel like it's going to enable you to embrace that growth path that you're focused on?
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
the remit of my role. So actually, HR in our organization is structured to be very, very focused on the employee experience. So I'm the head of Join, which sounds like an unusual title, but the
Mhm.
but the joint label comes with recruiting, onboarding, workforce planning, and a bunch of employer branding as well.
Yeah.
So my interest is very much on the candidate experience to ensure that what we present to people is authentic and transparent. And as people enter into the organization through the onboarding process, the experience is what we kind of give in the front end is kind of what you experience in the second stage as well. My colleagues are a head of Grow, who's responsible for traditionally learning and development and talent management. We have
Right.
a head of Contribute, but the whole system is really centered on the candidate and employee experience and how we can really prioritize what matters to us most in our next stage of evolution as an organization.
Sounds really exciting. I wanna go to work at Straumann Group. Oh, wait, I own this company, that would be problematic. Um, so are there, Benoit, any kind of are there some companies who benefit more from using a solution like TMX?
What I've seen is that company benefit differently. So even in the midst of the pandemics, I'm looking at our hospitality clients. Obviously, very difficult years for them, but they
Right.
used the opportunity to build their war chest. It was the industry that built the more leads or prospect, if you will, right? It's the assembling profiles in the database that are not necessarily applicant, but you nurture, you grow them, you pool them. So they build an enormous war chest of potential talent so that when they start reopening, they can pick within their database. But then you have other organization who will use it because in retail, it's all about speed. These are
Right.
not jobs that require terribly complicated skills. It's more about, is it close to my home? How much is the pay? What's the schedule? What's the commute look like? So you have to create that sort of very pragmatic experience for those frontline workers. And then you have the holy grail, the tech talent, the Java, the Python developers that everybody's chasing. They need the more sophisticated tech savvy experience. So we
Right.
found that our clients find different way of using it to achieve their goals.
So there's not any one industry or industry vertical or anything like that that you serve with this kind of solution. It's kind of across the board and
Yeah.
organizations of all different sizes?
Yeah. I would say, we have organization with a few hundred, not a lot, I would say. We have what 10% of the Fortune 500, but it's variable scales really.
Okay. Okay, that sounds great. So, what about? I'd like to wrap up our conversation with just touching base a little bit, Benoit, on the your talent experience management solution and any new features or developments that you're particularly excited about that we can be on the lookout for.
Yeah, I mean, with the recent years, and I think if you look at the market, there's a lot of consolidation. People are trying to minimize the number of systems that they have, which means for us making sure that we offer different capabilities. So we've been adding a lot more automation, like fully automated interview scheduling. Right? You need to reschedule. You send an email, natural language understanding bot that
Right.
will then take care of that. So you have an AI assistant. We've been adding a lot of video because it's well, the Zoom era, obviously,
Right.
but also video can be asynchronous. I don't need to be live for a video. I can record my question or my answer to your question, and as a recruiter, you can watch them later.
Right.
More AI, and of course, diversity and inclusion. There will be a lot more development coming in the next few months, but we're trying to, we're talking about behavioral economics, this idea of nudging people. So in the system, in the platform, we're going to have playbooks, component that will help organizations better manage their diversity, set diversity goals when they recruit, for example. So this is what's cooking, basically.
Oh, that's really exciting. So I want to, we haven't mentioned this before, and I want to make sure that our viewers and our listeners know that if you like what you're hearing about Phenom's talent experience management solution and want to explore more about that, you can find more information about that in the SAP store. And I know that you've long been a valued SAP partner, Benoit, and I will make sure to include a link um, to that to the SAP store so that you can get more information. I will also include links to AJ's LinkedIn profile and Benoit's LinkedIn profile. So that if you'd like to be connected with us, we invite you to reach out and do that. I know I'll speak for all three of us, and I know that we'd love to get to know you better. And any closing comments, AJ? You've been such a great participant in this conversation. I've really enjoyed your insights.
No, I can only add to what Benoit's been saying. I think, as a customer of Phenom, it's been incredible to bring quite cutting edge technology to a employee base and a candidate base who come back with really excited feedback about some of the features and their ability, or our ability, to kind of really enhance that product in quite fast timescales, to kind of say, hey, wouldn't it be great if we could do this? And
Right.
off goes a development engineer that kind of really does it. But I think the biggest thing for us is, in designing a solution, be really clear on who is your target persona that you're trying to enhance the life of, whether that's a candidate and do better marketing and engagement with, whether it's an employee where you're trying to give them career pathing options. Really understanding your persona of who you're trying to impact is super important. We can't be everything to everybody, but if we can target some folks, that's what I would say is where the magic can happen, when there's
Yeah,
focus and prioritization.
and that's not the first time that you've said that, where the magic happens. Then I really like that. I think that my key takeaway, and I hope that our audience's key takeaway from this conversation, is that that's really what HR tech solutions are all about. It's making magic happen. It's putting people first, whether you're talking about candidates that you're in the process of trying to recruit, whether you're talking about employees who you want to provide a fulfilling workplace, fulfilling career opportunities for growth and that kind of thing, or, management and HR professionals, and making their jobs more enjoyable, more fulfilling, more effective and efficient. I think all of that, it's just all about doing good things with people at the center of that equation. And that's where the magic happens.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Well, gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been a fantastic conversation, and I look forward to doing it again sometime soon.
Fabulous. Thank you very much.
Pleasure.